Welcome to Season 9 of the Charity Matters podcast. I'm Heidi Johnson, nonprofit founder, lifelong helper, and your host. I've been interviewing modern-day heroes for over a decade with my blog, and I am so excited to be sharing these inspiring conversations with our podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern-day heroes who set out to solve the problems of humanity. Did you know that 1 out of 2,500 people is affected with NF? NF stands for neurofibromatosis. Today's guest, Kate Durgee, is the founder of Penny's Flight, and she is on a mission to cure NF. And I am so excited to share her amazing journey and our inspiring conversation about all that she's doing to make a difference in the world. She is a ray of sunshine, and you are not going to want to miss this. Kate, I'm so excited to have Kate Durgee here today, the founder of Penny's Flight. Kate, thanks for joining us. I'm so happy you're here.
Oh, Heidi, thank you. It's an honor to be here with you. I'm thrilled. Thank you.
This is really fantastic. I've been following a little bit about what you're doing, and it is unbelievable what you are accomplishing in a very short window of time. So tell us quickly about what Penny's Flight is and what it is that you guys are doing.
Wow. Well, I am so filled with so much gratitude for what we have been able to accomplish since the passing of our daughter, Penny, who we'll get into her story, but she lived the most big, beautiful life, 16 years. And throughout her life, she was never defined by the condition she had, which was called neurofibromatosis, or NF. And NF, just to tell your listeners, is the most common genetic condition in the United States. However, it's the most underfunded. So 1 out of 2,500 people are affected with neurofibromatosis, which is 150,000 individuals in the United States. In comparison to ALS, 30,000 people have ALS, 150,000 NF, but no one has heard of neurofibromatosis. So when Penny was diagnosed at age 4 months old, we didn't let this diagnosis define her. And we'll go into her story. But through her whole life, because she lived this big, beautiful life, in the last week of her life, she had this brain tumor, a glioblastoma. And
I'm very familiar.
Yeah, and is the growth of tumors anywhere along the nerve pathways. So each condition or each case is very different. And in Penny's case, she had bone abnormalities, a bowed tibia bone, and she had finally in her last 2 years the growth of this brain tumor that we kept removing. So long story short, she lived a big, beautiful life. And the last week, we decided to celebrate her life and brought all of her friends and family in. And when she passed, we recognized that we had so much love and support, and we wanted to do something, not only to keep Penny's big, beautiful life and her legacy alive, but we really wanted to help other families, and we wanted to find a cure for NF. And so that's what we did. November of 2022 is when Penny passed, November 11th. I know. And gosh, in 4 weeks, we launched Penny's Flight, and it was the most beautiful. And
that's a quick turnaround. That is very speedy
turnaround. But as we'll talk about this, Heidi, like Penny's our partner in this, and Penny lived her life's purpose from day one. Right. And so it was no coincidence that when she passed, my background is in PR and fashion and marketing and launching brands, and my husband's in finance. And so we sort of looked at each other a couple days after Penny's life celebration, and we said, we got to do something. We got to do this. Right. And so our families and friends all came to the table, and we launched Penny's Flight. And And talk about wings spreading and shining a light. In the last two and a
So
half
good.
years, we've raised close to now $6 million. Yeah,
Wow.
we have over now 100 Penny's Flight chapters at various colleges and high schools across the country, who host events, play for Penny, lacrosse games, pucks for Penny, hockey
Oh, I
for
love that.
funding research. Yeah, it's been really beautiful.
Well, and I and we're going to get to it, but
Yeah.
I interview a lot of people who have, I always say it always begins with loss. Unfortunately, in so many cases, it begins with loss. Loss is the new beginning of the purpose and the transition. But a lot of people experience loss, and a lot of people don't do what you did. So, talk to me about maybe kind of growing up. Did you have role models that were kind of philanthropic? Did you grow up in a community that, like, because I don't think it just happens. I think there's
Yeah.
seeds planted when you look kind of, if you look back at the path you've come, as you
Yeah.
mentioned, all the things you've done in your career that helped lead you to this. Talk to me about kind of some of the early beginnings of service or philanthropy or inspiration there.
Yeah, I love this topic because I think it obviously is so important. And you're so right. My role models were my parents from day one. And I talk about
Right.
how I'm the type of person when people say, well, Kate sees life, glass full, not even half full. Like I see it full and the
Right.
opportunity to make an impact and to give back. And that really started with my parents. My mom was a dancer. She was the brightest light. And she, in fact, dancing and movement brought her sort of out of a dark time she had when she was younger. And she recognized how physical strength led to mental strength. So she started dancing. She was a belly dancer. She was a tap dancer. She was a
Oh,
jazzercise
wow.
instructor. Incredible role model for positivity and movement
Right.
and how important that is. And my father was a devout Catholic. He had been a Marine. He studied to be a priest. And so he had sort of this very diverse background, but they both instilled in me this idea of faith in something bigger than all of us. So I think
Right.
those were the seeds for me of that, there's a bigger world out there. And
Right.
we were fortunate
And
enough. Yeah.
and growing up Catholic as well, I mean, it's kind of in the DNA and the water, and that service just comes, and obviously being a Marine is
Yeah.
obviously serving, but service just comes with that faith message. It's part of the
Yeah.
package. Like, you're here to help other people. That's why we're here.
100%. And I'm so grateful to my parents because even in the 80s, we went and traveled to Haiti and the
Oh,
Dominican Republic.
wow.
Like I know this was like AIDS time.
Wow. People weren't doing that then.
No, no.
Right.
And so,
That's not, at least
yeah,
in that Bible, that was like, kids now are going to Africa to get into college and doing
yeah.
crazy, but people weren't doing that then.
I had a mom who would pick me up at school in her leg warmers, and so my upbringing was very untraditional compared
Right.
to all the other kids where I lived in Bedford, whose moms were like in turtleneck sweaters. But so I think that those seeds planted me, and I had such an appreciation for giving back that in my career, and as I mentioned, I public relations, communications, and I was at a fashion PR agency. And I just will never forget moving to New York City and feeling like wanted to make an impact. And throughout my whole career, I was working with different clients, and I was like, all right, what's that one client going to be that I'm going to feel like I've really moved the needle and made a big difference? And I sort of always was striving for more. When Penny was born, at 4 months old, she rolled off our bed and she fractured her tibia bone. And it was at that time that we raced up to Hospital for Special Surgery, HSS, um, orthopedic, number one orthopedic hospital in the country. And they took one look at only, is this a fractured tibia bone? But it's something called congenital pseudarthrosis. 1 out of 300,000 people have this. And it's so rare. We usually only see it under this umbrella of NF. And that was at the time that we had never heard of congenital pseudarthrosis because it was a long road ahead of repairing Penny's, and I wanted to give back. So I immediately got involved with Hospital for Special Surgery. So that was the first of joining boards and, launching fundraisers to be able to raise money for HSS.
Because it doesn't just happen. All of these things happen that lead us to this path, and we don't always. Nobody ever, and I always say this, nobody ever in their life as a young child has said, when I grow up, I want to be a nonprofit founder. No one has ever said that. What happens is that something in our life happens, some situation that takes us on a U-turn. We're headed on a path, like you're headed for that perfect client. We're headed down a road, we're all in this place. I was in the software business, and, same thing, like closing deals, doing distribution nationwide, and boom, something changes, and all of a sudden your life's turned upside down. So your path but it was preparing you for this moment, and it was preparing you for all of this.
100%. Yeah. And I love that you recognize that and you put that out, because I talk about it all the time and how I am so grateful. I feel like these have been gifts. And I tell my boys and my kids now that it's, life is not a straight path. It's like there's different building blocks, and this, turns you take lead you to where you're meant to be, but it's all part of the building blocks. My father, I think, was an intuitive to a certain degree, and because he was such a devout Catholic, he had this spirituality about him. My husband Chad and I got married. He pulled us aside to had lived the most charmed life. You have beautiful friends, beautiful family. Here we are with hundreds of friends at this wedding weekend.
Right.
And he said, but I will tell you, you will be challenged. And it is up to you how you decide to play the cards you're dealt in life. And, in that moment, there we were, 28 years old, and we were sort of like, Dad, you're crushing our vibe here. But it was the greatest advice that I ever received, because it was my father's words, and words that made the most impact on me. Everything we do and every challenge we're faced with, I keep my father's words in our head. We all have a choice on how we play the cards we're dealt in life.
And it's 100% the truth. And when I speak, I mean, literally, I feel like we are cut from the same cloth, my friend, because when I speak, I say the exact same thing. We all get handed, none of us get out of here without getting handed a bad hand. I mean, we just don't, we all get them. And, for me, my mom was hit by a bus at age 60, and in the blink of an eye, my parents' friends, and they were all killed. My mother, my parents' friends were killed in a car accident. My dad was in a coma. It was, an unbelievable, unexpected situation. But it's how you play the hand you're dealt. And it's totally, and I say it all the time, and it's the truth. We all, people, then that's why these conversations about what you're doing, Penny's Flight, are so important, because people are given pain every day, but they don't take it and use it as fuel for good. And so talk to me about, literally to turn something around in 4 weeks, talk to me about when you're like, okay, we're doing this. Talk to me about what that was like when you started, and how you, you're in the thick of beginnings of the thick of grief. I mean, you're not at the 4 month, 5 month, but you're in the heavy stages, starting in the shock stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And, similarly to your story, Heidi, I lost my father to congenital heart failure. My mother was in a car crash 5 days before Christmas. And so those moments, it was almost as if I was being tested to the ultimate, is losing a child.
100%.
And that
100%.
how do you handle that? And because
there's
that's great.
No there's no handling. There's no handling that.
And that is 100%
that.
100% the case, but I go back to my dad's advice. And when my dad passed, my mom was the brightest light. So we were like, all right, how are we going to celebrate my father's life? We're not going
Right.
to mourn him, right? He's
Right.
such a big force of nature in our life, in our lives. So we had to celebrate him that way. And then
Right.
with my
Right.
mom, similar to your situation, it was such a shock. My mom was
Right.
this big, beautiful, bright life. She had been playing tennis in the morning. She had played golf in the afternoon. She was racing to the post office to send off, Christmas packages. And so people thought she would live till she was at least 110.
Right.
She was
Right.
such a force. But in that moment, 5 days before Christmas, that was really my biggest test because I was the one who got that phone call saying that my mother had died in this car crash. And I was the one
Right.
who, in that instance, had to make a decision as I was walking into my house with my children, sitting there
Right.
waiting for Christmas. And so I decided to celebrate my mom. And with my brothers,
Right.
we were like, this is how we're going to do it. So that was really the rehearsal for when Penny passed. And
Right. Right.
it
Wow.
really actually goes to Heidi the week before Penny's final hours, final days, was that we did something that most people would never do. Like imagine you have a daughter who has a brain tumor that has now spread, and your entire community didn't even know what she had because she was never defined by it, and she never let the
Right.
chemos and the radiation and the 7
Wow.
brain surgeries she had define who she was, and we didn't allow that. So in that
Right.
last week, instead of closing our doors and going dark and being so depressed, we were like, open the doors, open the windows, and send Penny out in a rocket ship of love and create
Oh,
this just
love that.
love cocoon. So there was so much love and support during
So
Penny's
beautiful.
life and her last week, that when she did pass, we were like, all right, this has to continue. Like, and it
Right.
was something that's, I think, within me that even before I hit the shock and the grief, it was like, let's go. And it was these
Right.
actionable steps. And, it's similar to you. I talk about this in my book that's coming out next June, but it's not grief because it's really
Right.
to go through this. And it really is about actionable steps. I always say, like, get up and put your 2 feet on the ground and just one foot in front of the other to keep moving forward. And
Right.
so there was a drive,
Well,
though, to do something.
and I think that, the other thing that I think, and when you experience loss, you talk about kind of the energy and the love, and the only words that brought me comfort in my loss was my husband said, energy can't be created or destroyed. It's a fact of the universe. And when you think about the energy that you had around Penny and the love and that
Yeah.
energy, and you think about Penny's energy that carries you on. I mean, I believe like my mom's energy fueled so much of the work, and I feel like that energy lives through us and it does not go away. It does not
Oh
go
my
away.
gosh.
And people say, how do you
Yeah.
have all the energy, Heidi? How do you do this and this and this? I don't feel like it's all my energy. I feel like so much of it is the energy that I've inherited, that I carry with me.
Completely, 100%. And you are talking my love language because I feel like I'm always referring to vibrations, right? That energy.
Right.
And my mom had such big, bright energy, and Penny had such big, bright energy. And people would ask me the same way. They'd be like, how are you doing this? Like, how
Right.
and the first thing people would say is like, I can't imagine losing a daughter and now launching a foundation.
Right.
And the answer every time is, well, imagine if you did. Like,
Right.
imagine if you did lose your daughter, it will keep her legacy alive. Like, imagine what that looks like and the difference it makes.
It's the most beautiful legacy you can give. And I've interviewed hundreds of people that have lost people and children. Um, but the legacy lives on in the work they do in serving others. But it doesn't mean
Yes.
that it's easy, and it doesn't mean that there aren't
No.
challenges,
Yeah.
because you still have two children, you still
Yes.
have laundry, life, a
Yeah.
job, a husband. Life goes on, even though
Yeah.
grief comes at you, and you're starting a foundation. So, talk to me about the challenges while you're grieving and doing this in those early days of starting the organization.
Yeah, well, and I will add to the fact that with a 16-year-old, Penny had a big, beautiful group of friends too, who've never lost anyone. They had barely lost a
Right.
grandparent, let alone their
Right.
very best friend that they had grown up with. So I had my boys, I had Penny's girls, I had my community that hadn't lost anyone,
Right.
my family, my extended family. So for me, it just felt like, you know what? I want to be a ray of light for others, and I want to set sort of the tone and the path that others
I
can
love that.
follow. And it felt like that was my number one job over the laundry.
Oh,
It was like,
right. Right.
and that was taking care of my boys, and that was taking care of my husband. And by leading with light, it felt like,
Right.
okay, we're forging a new path that is not expected during grief, but it's one that if people recognize the difference it can make, then hopefully will inspire others. And it's
Right.
funny, Heidi, because we talk about, Penny truly was our partner in this. Like, she always loved butterflies. She, the necklace I wear every day was Penny's that we'd given to her for her birthday. It's a butterfly with her name on it. And so when she, in the last week of her life, in November, there's butterflies everywhere. Like, outside, we'd look around and be like, oh my gosh, look at the butterflies on the window. And then when Penny passed, we saw butterflies everywhere. And when we sat
You
down
look for the
you
signs.
look, and which I love, all
I
the
have a
signs.
chapter in my book saying called Look for the Signs.
And I do
Literally,
too.
yeah,
That's
because
one of
it's
the
true.
yeah, it's one of the actionable steps you can take
Right.
through grief that allows you to
100%.
recognize that they're not gone. They're just with you in a different
A
way, a
different
different
way. Right.
shape and form. And so the butterflies came quickly. And when we sat down to launch Penny's flight, it really all came together because it was like, what are we going to name this foundation? Well, is it Penny's
Right.
purpose? Because we talk a lot about Penny lived her life's purpose and now we're living
Right.
ours. But it was like, no, it's more than that. And it was our son, our oldest son, Henry, who was like, I think it's Penny's flight. He was like, because we are talking about her legacy and her big, beautiful life, and her life continues, and the flight that
Right.
continues to help others. So all of a sudden, it was like wings were spreading. So it's your
Right.
wingspan, not your lifespan. And so all of a sudden, it was just wings and butterflies,
But it's so good. And I think people, I always tell people when they've lost someone, look for the signs. And they
Yes,
look at me like I'm crazy.
I know.
And I say, but you'll understand. You have to be paying it, you have to be open to it.
Yes,
And but it gives you such peace and joy. And in your case, it gave you the direction.
yes.
Penny guided you through the signs about what to do.
She did and continues to. And that's where, when we talk about, going back to your question about, how do you move through those early days? I think
Right.
because we felt connected to her and we kept our eyes open. I mean, honestly, Heidi, one of my favorite stories was like Penny passed, and moments after she did, and we were with the boys, and we had our house, actually was probably 30 people in our house the moment that
Oh,
Penny passed. And it was a bright, beautiful day outside. And we gathered up our boys and our dogs, and we went for a long walk in one of our favorite places. And when we got back into the car, on the radio, which had not been on when we got to our walk, but all of a sudden we got
right.
back in the car, turned on the car, and blaring was Walking on Sunshine, which was Penny's mantra and
Oh,
her most favorite song. And that was the first sign. And we were like, oh my
right.
gosh, here she is.
And
She's with us.
and when you know.
You
Like
do. Yeah.
you know, it's like she
Yeah.
walked into the room. You know the presence. You know it. There's
That's,
no denying it. There's
and
no
that
denying
was
it.
And that was the first sign of like, keep going, keep putting one foot in front of the other, because it was those signs and Penny's recognition and Penny's, sort of stamp of approval of like, you're doing this, like, keep going. And that is what has been beautiful, and just
I love that.
quickly about signs, it's really beautiful when Penny's brothers and her girlfriend, they open their eyes to the signs, and they see
And
them all
see
the
them.
time. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And it's such a gift, and it just makes you feel that love again, and that energy carries you on. And when things are hard, it carries you on. But talk to me, you mentioned kind of early on some of the success and the impact you've had. And I hate the word impact. I mean, it's something we all have to be measured by,
Yeah.
and people want to invest in, they want to bet on bet the best horse, they want to
Yeah.
bet on a winning horse. So we have to have it, but sometimes when we're going to foundations or we're going for grants, or we have to measure things in different ways, and measuring someone's life and legacy and things like that are impossible things to measure. And the love that goes with what you're doing is impossible, and the connection and the community that you're building. But talk to me
Yes.
about how you measure impact with what you've been
Oh my
doing.
gosh, in so many ways. I mean, again, right out of the gate, I feel like this is where I am living my life's purpose, because there's no coincidence that my background was PR and media. And I have beautiful friends. Nora O'Donnell, is a wonderful friend. She knew Penny since she was a baby. Jenna Bush Hager was a beautiful friend, and knew Penny, and her daughters were in Penny's glam camp. So right out of the
Oh,
gate, we had so many friends who were like, what can we do? How can we
right.
help? Because they wanted to give back also.
Which
And
is great.
so, which is great, because that's what really helped sort of launch us, was that Nora brought us on CBS with Nora O'Donnell, and she did an interview with Chad and I talking about turning pain into purpose and Penny's legacy, and how it's your wingspan, not your lifespan. And
Right.
this idea of, is our pillars are finding beauty in imperfection, positivity in the face of challenge, and having faith over fear. And that, by the way, resonates with everyone. It's not
Right.
just,
How can it not?
how
That's
can it
being
not?
human. That's
Yeah.
being human.
Yeah. And so Nora was like, this is going to help a lot of people. Penny's story, your pillars, your message, and how you've turned pain into purpose. So that was literally a week after we launched the foundation. And
Wow.
then my friends at Oprah Daily, who I had worked with for my entire career, were like, we want to write an article. You need to write an article for Oprah
Right.
Daily, talking about how you've played the cards you're dealt, right, and how you've chosen the light in the darkest time. So I wrote an article that came out, and all of a sudden it was like, just raising awareness on a condition no one had heard of, and a story
Right.
that most people would not choose. And so that was the first sort of note of, okay, we're doing this. And then
Right.
it was, all of a sudden kids were coming to me and saying, what can we do? How can we
I
get
love that.
involved? And that, honestly, Heidi, is my greatest gift. And
The
what fills my
best.
heart the most is this younger generation who have gotten on board, because they know what a difference it makes using social media for greater
Mm.
impact and
Right.
greater good. And so that first January, February, after we launched Penny's Flight, all of a sudden I had all of these kids at different schools who were like, can we do a Pucks for Penny hockey game? Can we do a Play for Penny lacrosse game? Can we do a bake sale? And everything was P. It was raising awareness by doing these events and raising funds. So when it really came time in that spring, when we were going to do our first annual fundraiser, which we
Right.
still do, we call it Penny's Flight Family Jamboree. And it was really my husband's brainchild, where he was like, we are going to launch an outdoor music festival.
Oh
And
my gosh.
and it was amazing, because he modeled it off of something he did growing up, which was, he would go with his family and listen to the Boston Pops. And you'd bring picnic blankets and picnics, and kids would run around, and you'd listen to great music on a beautiful summer
Right.
night. And so Penny loved her birthday. So that first year, we were like, this is what we're going to do. And all of a sudden, we had 650 people. I know, right out of the gate for Fam Jam.
But
And
but that's like something. Community is really, when you think about people, when they think about nonprofits, they think about people asking them for money. They don't think about entrepreneurs. They don't think about the communities we build. We have communities, but we create them and we magnify them and we amplify them. And just by having people over for music and 650, it's exactly
Yeah.
what you're doing, right? Exactly what you're
And
doing.
and that's really at the root of it, honestly, is I wanted to bring people together. So even when we go back and we talk about Penny's last week of her life, I wanted people to come in and not exclude anyone. So that
Right.
was the beginning of it, where it was like make everyone feel like they're a part of celebrating Penny's life for those that knew her, and then certainly for those that didn't ever meet Penny. I want people to join
Right.
in, like join us in this
Right.
movement and what we're doing to
Absolutely.
spread wings.
I,
And so you're right. It was about building community, making people feel like we all have a piece of this and we're
right.
all doing this together.
Exactly. So talk to me, since you are an entrepreneur on multiple levels, but definitely with Penny's Flight, you are for sure an entrepreneur. You can't be an entrepreneur without a dream, and you're obviously someone who's very goal oriented.
Yes.
So talk to me about what the big dream is for Penny's Flight.
Well, it's not a dream because I know it will happen, is I feel it in my bones and I know it that we will find a cure for NF. And I
Oh,
have never felt more sure and confident about something in my life. And I just know it because I have to say, this is where it goes back to your question of like, how do we measure success or what we're doing? And certainly, with the chapters I've talked about and the media and brand collaborations that have happened, which we'll talk about, it really comes down to the scientific research that we've been able to fund and the progress that we're already seeing being made.
and this is only in 3 years, Kate. I mean,
I
this
know.
is you are. I mean, I interview hundreds of nonprofit founders, and we all are doing what we can do. But you are on like a fast forward track of like
This is it.
your pace. Your pace is not normal.
I know.
And that's a good thing. And that's a good thing. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredibly fast. And obviously you've leveraged your connections and you've leveraged your relationships and friendships and your skill set and all the things you have, which is what everyone who's doing
Yeah.
this, no matter where they are in the world. But it's so exciting because it's moving your mission forward at such an incredible pace.
Yeah. And I think, I laugh even at myself because, again, I grew up with a mother who was the belly dancer, jazzer. She was always moving. And that's very much how I work. But I am very determined. So all the energy that I poured into making sure Penny had a very beautiful life and normal life,
Right.
I now am pouring into making sure that this happens. And so that no other family has to go through what
Right.
we went through, and that,
Right.
that we will find a cure. So it feels like, yes, I think to those on the outside, they're like, oh my gosh, like, how is this happening? But for me, I'm like, yeah, this is how you get it done. Like, this
And
is
it,
just,
it is how you get it done, but research funding is so challenging, and the medical
yes,
community. And I mean, I have a number of friends that have taken on different, who have children that are sick with different unique things, that have taken this on, and it is something to tackle. It is
it's a
serious.
beast.
It's a beast.
Yep.
It's a
And
beast.
not only with the private foundations who are funding scientific research, but then we won't even talk about federal funding and what happened in the last year because I was on Capitol Hill
I
advocating.
saw that on your site, and
Yeah,
they cut the funding.
they did 25 million to NF. However, it's back on the bill to be, reviewed for this year. But I think it sort of makes us hungrier. And you know what I have to say again, because I look at every opportunity as an opportunity for growth and learning. And in this case, I think the biggest and most rewarding thing that I have witnessed through launching Penny's Flight and getting more involved in the NF community is that there's collaboration. So whereas I think prior to launching Penny's Flight, NF is a very sort of niche field because, as I mentioned, neurofibromatosis is the growth of tumors anywhere along the nerve pathways. But under the umbrella of NF, you can have a multitude of symptoms or very few. So no one case looks the same.
Right.
So when it comes to scientific research and funding that has happened in the past, it's been very siloed. So it's, people who are just focusing on optic gliomas or
Right.
tumors, brain tumors, or cognitive issues. So
They're in
yeah.
silos, and they're in silos,
Yes.
a lot of these researchers, and they're competing for research dollars rather than
Yes.
collaborating together to create solutions.
Exactly. And so that is why out of the gate, we, again, going back to collaboration, inclusivity, bringing people together, it really was our mission to break down the barriers, bring people together. And one of the very first things we did out of the gate was we were contacted by Cold Spring Harbor Labs early in January after we had launched the foundation. And Cold Spring Harbor Labs actually is based 5 miles from our house here on Long Island.
Oh, wow.
But they are incredibly renowned scientific research. And for those who are listening, you may know the Innocence Project, where they were the ones to discover DNA and put DNA into court cases to release those who've been wrongly convicted without DNA samples.
Wow. Wow.
So it's an amazing story, and they've done incredible research. And they had focused on NF years ago, but when they saw that we had launched the foundation, and I think they saw our momentum and our passion, and I think researchers want that, right? They want to work with
They need advocates. They need
advocates, yes, with strong voices and that passion that they know are going to be there for the long haul. And so they reached out to us and said, we'd love to talk to you. We have something called Banbury, which is a Banbury meeting they do. It's a lock-in think tank where the organizations, the foundations fund this, and they bring in top experts from around the world to come in for sort of like this think tank. So we did that, and it had not been done for NF in over, I think, 12 years. And so that was really the first for us nations and organizations, and Children's Tumor Foundation is the other NF foundation that became our very close partner.
It's just fascinating to me that the research, the medical community doesn't think the way that we do it. In a business problem, we're going to get all the experts together. We're going to bang our heads out. We're going to whiteboard. We're going to figure this out. And how the medical community doesn't do this like innately is always so fascinating to me. But
I know.
But it's the only way things happen is when people come together and share ideas. That is how the world goes forward. I mean, period.
That's it. I mean, that really is it. And that's where we're going to be the most successful, is coming together. And, we lean on others' strengths, and I think Children's Tumor Foundation has been around for a long time in the NF field, and we've partnered with them because they have a built foundation organization, scientific research, but we've become a marketing engine for NF and raising awareness. So, working together
Which
with
is
them.
Huge.
Well, in part,
and right, half of what I think people don't realize when they start nonprofits is we all have a mission of something we want to do to make the world better. But getting the word out in a noisy world is very, very difficult. And you do this for a living, so you happen to know. But that is such a gift for a researcher or anyone who's doing this work, because just to be heard, like, hey, I'm over here and I want to help this, is more than half the battle. It's just getting a voice.
Just getting a voice. And I will say, again, this goes back to where there's no coincidence that this happened to us and that we're doing this because of my background. I can't imagine where we would be if we did not have the support of the younger generation, right, with their social media and spreading wings and, this ripple effect, the butterfly effect that they have created. But I also will say, I can't imagine where we would be if it wasn't for some of the brand support that we've had, and I talk about brands, friends of mine who in my career I've worked with, who again came to me and were like, what can we do? And that's Veronica Beard, who, the national.
They're so great. The sisters,
they're
sister-in-laws.
Yeah,
They're so great.
sister-in-laws, and Veronica Swanson Beard and Veronica Meal Beard, and both very, very good friends of mine, and Allison Aston, who's
and I love that you're representing today. I recognize the jacket.
Yeah, exactly. I'm always in VB.
I have a couple. I know you're representing. So job well done.
Always representing. But they were the first who came out of the gate, and they were like, "All right, let's do the Veronica Beard Gives Back. Let's get co-hosts for all stores nationwide, London, Toronto, and honestly, that was the wings that started to spread. So we did that our first year, and we've done it every year since, and in all doors across the country where co-hosts, and it's literally, Heidi, it's like friends of friends of friends, and people I don't even know who all of a sudden.
But that's how it goes national, because all their stores, I've been involved with so many of those events, and those women are making a huge difference getting the word out. Incredible. And they make the best Dickie blazer in the world.
So. Exactly. And so between the fashion and, they always say it's, look good, do good, feel good. And they really are. And so they were the first, and then friends of ours at J. McLaughlin, and we had friends of ours at Roller Rabbit who wanted to do the Flutter pajama collection because they'd never done butterflies. And, Roller Rabbit's Penny's most favorite brand.
But all of these things, happen for a reason. And I love also to see businesses authentically getting involved and making a difference, because that partnership takes that voice we talked about to a next level and brings the message to people that would never know about it. And it is such a huge gift. But talk to me about some of the things you've learned on this. It's not, you've had a life journey, obviously, but in the last 3 years, this is a lot. This is a lot. So talking about some of the lessons that you think you've learned in the last 3 years since Penny's passing.
Thank you for the question, because I think it's such a gift. I look at the last 3 years as a true gift, and the learning curve has been straight up, not only in learning about NF, because we had never even gone down that road, really, because we didn't want Penny to be defined by it. So we were just focused on her life. So I've learned a lot about NF and the NF community, supporting them and really raising the awareness and the funds that they need, right? So that's on the scientific, that's on the emotional. But I think the life lessons is the greatest, gift that I have received, which is going back to what we've talked about, like the proof that we have a choice, and the choice that we make through these different challenges, adversity, and certainly loss makes all the difference in the world. So the lessons that I've learned of the choices that we have decided to make is that you can move through grief, you can move through loss, and you can come out stronger and more resilient on the other side if you choose to really move through it in a different way than is culturally, I think, idealized or assumed. And that, I think, as I said, started with my dad, my mom, with Penny, but the greatest lesson really paint a purpose and to help others and to bring people together, and the magic that can happen when you reach for darkness.
And you feel the magic when you're in it, because things start happening that you can't explain. I mean, the connections, whether
Oh my
it's
gosh.
a Veronica Beard or it's
Yep.
whatever it is, but things start coming out of the woodwork. Doors keep opening that you
Yes.
can't explain, that tell
Yes.
you you're on the right path. Keep
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
forward. And
Yes.
you know it. So every hair on your body stands up. You feel this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not setting out to be a role model for other people. You're just going through, following the signs, doing what you think is the way forward, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden you've created something, and you've
Yes.
you've built a legacy, and you've built an organization, and you've built a
Yeah.
nonprofit, and you've built a message. And that is how 1.6 million people change the world in this country every day. And
I
even the
know.
people, and that's just the founders, and
Yeah.
not to mention the thousands and millions of volunteers in this country that are supporting efforts like yours. I mean,
Yeah.
it's this is what the world needs to be focusing on. And
Yeah.
this is what's important, and this is
It
what
is.
matters.
It is. And I love that again you're speaking my love language because it's those moments where I'm sort of questioning because again you think about this like I had a completely different career. I had a different life 3 years ago. I had no idea. I could not have imagined I'd be sitting here talking to you about this.
Right?
I couldn't have imagined that I would have written a book, that I'd now be doing speaking engagements, that there's just no way. And so, but it's the little signs that keep telling you. And I'm going to tell one story because I think it's beautiful, just about the ability to raise awareness and the impact you can make. And two stories. One is I was contacted by a woman through Penny's Flight DM back in November, and she said to me, "Oh my gosh, I never do this, but I'm reaching out because my daughter was just diagnosed with NF a few weeks ago. Never even heard of the condition. She's 4 years old. I Googled it, went down a dark hole, and she said, and just today I opened my mailbox and there's an invitation to attend a Jay McLaughlin in-store shopping event to support
Um,
Penny's Flight. And she said, and went down a very positive rabbit hole learning about Penny's Flight. I can't
oh,
believe it benefits NF. And she said, so I'm so happy to learn about your foundation. We stayed in touch. Fast forward to this past April, she reached out again and she said, you know what, Kate, I'm at Blackstone and there's this opportunity called Blackstone Gives Back Challenge. And if I put together a team, would you allow me to pitch Penny's Flight as a possible recipient of funds for the Blackstone Gives Back? And I was like, absolutely, let's
yes.
go, we're in. And so we spent 2 months putting together a proposal. 400 individuals were pitching among the Blackstone group, and we made it through the quarterfinals, the semifinals, finals. We won $125,000 for funding for Penny's Flight, and this was all an NF
Yay.
mom who did this,
Just
and it's the most beautiful example of
right,
like she got this diagnosis. We connected because of the brand awareness.
right,
And then she did it. And so I said to her, I was like, Courtney, look what you've done, how you took
right.
that and turned it into real impact.
And we all have that power. I'm not saying we all work at
Yeah.
Blackstone, but we
No,
all
but
have the ability to move and change other people's lives. We
yeah,
all do. We all do. We
yeah.
just don't always choose to do it, but we have it.
But it can be the smallest things, Heidi.
Right,
It's literally
right.
like, another example is that with the Roller Rabbit, they did the pajama collection. I had a young woman reach out who has NF, and she reached out and she said, I've lived with NF my entire life, and I never thought my most favorite brand would be supporting the condition that I've lived with. And she said, I finally feel seen. So, and then she was
Oh,
going to launch a chapter at her school. So, it doesn't have to be launching a foundation or launching a collection, but it's like even the simplest act, sharing something on
right.
social media that means something to you,
Or
doing a
wearing
bake
your
sale to
Lily,
raise money.
right. Or wearing a Lily Pulitzer shirt. And someone says, oh, I
Yes,
love that shirt. And what is
yes,
this?
yeah,
Oh, this is for, and then
yeah,
you're a messenger. Then you're a messenger for something bigger than a pink and green shirt, that you're a messenger for
exactly.
something important that's changing people's lives.
Yeah,
And that's, but what's so beautiful about what you're doing, not only in finding the cure, is you are also empowering thousands of people to be your messengers and your warriors, and you're giving them purpose, and you're giving them light, and you're giving them joy. And that's that people look to nonprofit founders because we do carry this light, and the light we carry is the joy we get in serving other people. And people look at us and they say, I want what she's having. But they don't know what it is until they start serving and giving. And once they give, then they have the light too.
And I love that. I mean, like, makes me want to cry, because that is like, I believe in that so wholeheartedly.
It's the truth. It's the truth. It's the truth. And everyone listening, and everyone who follows you and who follows this, they know that. They know that. And whenever you're down, whenever you're sad, the second you do one kind thing, you feel instantly better. Better.
Absolutely. And, we talk about it because it's like I say, the simplest act, such as a flap of a butterfly's wing, can cause a revolution. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's what we all are trying to do with foundations, is like, how do you make a big impact so that others want to be a part of it? But it can be as simple as being kind to someone, because then they pass it on, and then they pass it on.
Right. So talk to me about how we can support you in all of this. Tell me, what are the simple things, the big things, what we can do, where we can find you, about your book, get everything.
Oh my gosh. Well, again, I want to cry because I'm so grateful, and it feels like such a gift. But it really is about spreading wings and shining a light, not only on Penny's flight and Penny's legacy, as we've talked about, because who doesn't need to follow those 3 pillars of finding beauty and imperfection, positivity in the face of challenge, and having faith over fear? But that's where all of us need that. And it's a beautiful daily reminder. And so for me, I feel like I'm Penny's vessel, to keep that message going. And which is why it's my mission and my new chapter in life to launch what I've termed as Reimagine, which is my platform that I'm now leaning into, which is just approaching life in a different way than we normally expected. How we can look at our physical, our mental, and our emotional health, and making choices that do make the difference. So I have written this book, Reimagining Grief. So for those listeners, pre-sale books will be coming out. Follow my website and my social media. And so you can follow the journey. I'm launching workshops on how to reimagine grief, how to reimagining, midlife career changes, facing adversity, turning pain into purpose.
Besides pennysflight.org, tell us your website.
It's katedoerge.com. So Doerge is a really tough one, but DOERGE.com. And I think the way that people can help is just spreading wings on everything that Penny's Flight is doing, and the mission I'm on, to be able to help others recognize we do have a choice. And I think that, again, it's the tapping of the butterfly wings. And it's like, if I can help you, Heidi, and you can teach your listeners and they can teach their friends, like, that's wings that are spreading.
And that's the beauty of what all this is. It is so true. I love what you're doing. Your message, you are my people. Kate, you speak to my heart, and I hope you're speaking to everyone listening. And I hope that everyone listening is going to go out and spread wings and go into pennysflight.org and learn about starting a chapter, or donating, or volunteering, or getting involved, because this is such beautiful work. And I do think you will find a cure. I have no faith. I have no doubt. I have complete faith and no doubt that will happen.
Well, we could not do it without everyone's help. So from the bottom of my heart, Heidi, thank you. Thank you to your listeners. And we're all in this together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I really enjoyed listening to our guest, Kate, talk about what it takes to start a business that truly changes people's lives. I think her comment about moving through grief and loss and adversity was so inspiring and true. To learn more about these modern day heroes and entrepreneurs, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit us at charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at Charity Matters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared it with your family and friends. And please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It's the greatest gift. But more than that, thank you for caring, for believing in goodness, for being a part of our movement. You are exactly what the world needs more of. Remember that together we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. Charity matters.